Before we begin our review of World Serpent Arcanist, Eric and Scott thought it a good idea to visit with Chad, a Shami Stovall fan and frequent visitor to the Capital Station Discord server. Chad has been working on an idea for a Frith Chronicles role-playing game, which he wanted to share. In addition, Shami Stovall herself was invited to join the guys for her thoughts on the idea. So, without further ado, here are Eric, Scott, Shami, and Chad.
Well, we're recording, so... Whoa.
Yeah, we're recording, so it should kick in hopefully here in just a minute. So, anyways, just getting things kicked off here. Welcome to the Frith Guild podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and today we have a couple of guests on. The author of the Frith Guild, or the Frith Chronicles series, Shami.
It's me, Shami.
And we have today with us Zerza as well. Zerza Discord. Again, if you want us to call you Zerza, Chad, whichever you want to call us today.
Either or works. Zerza online, Chad as a person, whichever.
And today we're coming on to kind of discuss the Chad's been working on a tabletop game for the Frith Chronicles, and basically in this world that Varden is, and kind of showing us what he's got and kind of walking us through everything that he's put together. And we're looking for definitely some positive things coming out of it. If there's any suggestions or comments, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And any way to expand it or any confusions that it creates.
I'm not the most familiar with as far as like tabletop gaming goes. I personally have never sat down for a tabletop game.
What?
And part of the reason why I definitely wanted Shami on here too, because I know she definitely has. So it's kind of that like I just want to make sure we have someone that knows what they're talking about.
Technically, John and I made an entire tabletop game system, and it's a D10 system. And the Nightmare Arcanist book is semi based off of it. So it's funny that people would be reverse engineering a game system based off of a game system that I wrote a book on. But I have an entire game system. It is complicated. It is not for, people that just want to sit down and make a goofy character and then do a little goofy things and then never think about it again. Because John and I really, really like tabletop games, and John is very, 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 very skilled at making game systems because he's like in love with numbers. If he could have children with numbers, he would have children with numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how much he really likes numbers. And we've played it for years. In the game, in the actual tabletop, we just call them animals of pure magic. And they talk just like in the Arcanist books. You bond with them. Sometimes you have to do something for them, sometimes not. The trials of worth in the books were more formalized than how we have it on our tabletop game, because not everybody wants to... We don't want to grind the game to a halt for somebody to individually go through a trial of worth, if that makes any sense. Like that just slows down the game. So we didn't... On the actual game itself, most of the time what happens is that you have to get them somehow, usually through some adventure that everybody can participate in, and then you got them, and now you can bond with them. On the tabletop game that I did make, we had categories of animals of pure magic, and I used those categories in the Arcanist books. So there were animals, obviously. We called them shrubs, but they were any creature that was based off of a plant. We had puppets, which are any animal of pure magic that can bond to you physically. So the Nightmare is technically a puppet type in our tabletop game. It's the same with the Reaper. Reapers were also puppets. Anything that could bond with you, really. And then we had mythic creatures, which were weapons, like a sword or a gun or some bullshit like that. There were enigmas, which are more like pure energy and do pure energy things. I ended up adding an enigma to the Academy books. In the 4th book, Lucian's daughter is bonded to an enigma. So they're really rare in our tabletop game, like super rare to find an enigma. So I made it super rare in the Arcanist stuff. But this is what I'm talking about. All the Arcanist books are all based off my tabletop game, but they're just they're made for a book as opposed to a tabletop gaming session. Like the yin and yang forces of the world that correct balance. Those things are all fun to me. They're not fun in a tabletop game. But yeah, so I feel like what I would need to see with your system is like how many dice are we rolling? Like, are these add 6, add 10? Are these like add 6 dice?
No, it's to your number rolled. So
Oh,
it's like
okay.
if your base is a 6 and you add 2, then you need to roll an 8.
Okay, so like vampire in that it's a difficulty check.
Yeah. More on that
Okay,
line. There are things I had for adding dice, but they were more specific. Like
Gotcha.
for action economy things, typically, your creature, your Eldrin and your person would have different things. You'd have your different dice, but for action economy, the benefit of like a nightmare or reaper bonding, I had the idea of just you get 2 to try to be more successful at what you're doing. You have a higher chance of actually doing it, but you lose having an entire second turn basically. Or some abilities like in the terrors, I have added dice on there somewhere, I believe, or on one of them.
I could show you guys like one of the creatures from our games if you want.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's interesting or if anybody is like, whoa, that's what I definitely want to see is some bullshit from Shami's game.
It'd be interesting to see because it's kind of like a circular thing of game went to book to make game.
Yeah. But I can show you. I can put it in the doc if you want. Now this is just I searched my computer and just typed in puppet. This is the first one that came up. In our tabletop game, we do all sorts of time frames. So sometimes we play like a space game, like where we have magic in space. Or sometimes we play in like medieval periods, or sometimes we play on Earth because why the fuck not? You know what I'm saying? Like we just do whatever we want whenever we are having fun.
Oh, yeah.
I can show you what we have, and then you can delete it. Again, you don't need to keep it. I don't care. So all the creatures in the game have their own stats. They have strength, dexterity, stamina, charisma, manipulation, appearance, perception, intelligence, wits. They all have different magic typings and creature typing. So in my game system, we have 12 types of magic. The type of creature, what rank it is. The creature ranks up the longer it's bonded to you, which is exactly how I do it in the book. That the longer that it's bonded to you, the more it gets older, the better it gets. Supposedly. I also had ways in the tabletop game to force it to evolve, and what I mean by evolve is just go up ranks. Like the star shards. In the books, star shards come from the skies. They're basically pure magic. In our tabletop game, you could get these types of shards and you could force feed them to your creatures and it would auto rank them up. Because again, we're playing a tabletop game. We don't got time to wait for this guy to just level up himself. There was also magical abilities you could learn as the mage, basically, that could speed up the growth process. So if you were a soul mage who was really, really good at magic, you can make it so that your creature grows 10 times as fast. So while everybody else's ages at a normal rate, yours ages like really, really quick until it hits maturity and then. So the Nexus games is more heavily based off of our actual tabletop game. Playing in the Nexus is like playing our tabletop games. Like with the Arbiter and all that other kind of stuff. Him bonding to Blaze is like what would happen in one of our games and then he had an egg. We love the randomness of finding animal of pure magic eggs and then it can hatch into anything. So that joke about it could be a blender was a joke from one of our tabletop games. Like, oh man, it could be anything. It could even be a blender. And then, so I contemplated having a blender in the actual book, but it's not quite as cool. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, my Relic Keeper just made of blenders.
Yeah, made of blenders. I really love the Relic Keepers. I think they're cool. So, well, the formatting is wonk here, but if you're familiar with Vampire, these things will look familiar. If you're not familiar with Vampire, I can just go through them. Its name is Hazmat.
That first page is actually very close to what. So my current iteration is maybe into like 20s or 30s of general ideas. This looks very close to like my first few because Vampires was one of my early inspirations for it.
Yeah, so this is a D10 system, and we just wholesale took a lot of the D10 system from Vampire, because it's fun, and we like to roll shit tons of dice. Like, the more dice, the better. If you roll like 40 dice, you feel like a baller. You know what I'm saying? So that's the kind of stuff we do. Anyway, Hazmat is the name of the creature, and Protective Measures is her title. In Vampire, you have natures and demeanors, but we hate demeanors, so we got rid of them. But natures at least tell you a little bit about the creature's personality. So the nature just says defender. In Vampire, you have to like role play this kind of thing, and you can get points up and down if you do it well. We kind of kept some of that, but not really, because it's not quite as fun. It's pretty limiting. So we only keep the nature just basically to tell you this creature has a defender type nature. She likes to defend people. The primary magics are meta and storm, and those are from our actual, like, we just made all this type of stuff wholesale. It's the 12 magics. If you have read my Nexus games, they're all in the Nexus games. Meta is a really, really rare magic, and Storm is about water, lightning, all this other kind of stuff. Meta is usually about, it's the magic of magics. So she's genderless, but identifies as female. It's a puppet, so you can wear it. Its talent is basically how good of a creature it is. So the higher its talent, the faster it ranks up, and the more ranks it can have. So strong is pretty good, not the greatest. Gets plus 40% growth and plus 2 maximum ranks, and currently she's rank 5. So here we don't have who the master is, who she's bonded to, or what her growth rate is. So this is probably, we were probably playing a game, and Hazmat was already rank 5 when somebody found her, right? Because her old master died, and just so like in my Arcanist books, you can second bond to something, so there she is. And these are all our stats. You can see, you know, if you played a video game, I feel like you know what this means. Woo! She's really tough, but not super duper strong, right? And she's intelligent. So if you scroll down, just like in Vampire, they had talents, skills, and knowledges to differentiate what the hell you could do. There you go. You know what I'm saying? In Vampire, they had like a blood system where you can spend your blood to do interesting magical things. We just used a mana system, and every magical creature has mana that they can do stuff with. That's it. Willpower, the higher you have, the better you resist mental attacks. If you just scroll down. That's a physical description of what she looks like. And then if you scroll down again, this is where all of her magical abilities are, and they just tell you. You know what I'm saying? Hazmat can speak and understand every non-magical verbal language. She can communicate telepathically with anybody up to 300 feet. All of her occult is considered auto for soaking. She can breathe underwater. You know what I'm saying? Like, whoa. And if you scroll down one more page, this is the benefits of merging with Hazmat. So Hazmat can spend around 2 mana to merge to her master. Once merged, master gains half of all Hazmat's stamina. So currently she has 6, so you get plus 3 stamina, half of her manipulation, half of her occult, all Hazmat's survival, all her magical abilities. So you, as the mage, gain the ability to, you know, breathe underwater, have telepathy. They live and die as a single being, just like in my Arcanist books. And I think if you scroll down just a little bit more, you can see the picture that's used on her character sheet. That's what she looks like, because she's like a high tech,
Hazmat suit.
like a high tech nightmare. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. So in our tabletop game, if you bonded with Hazmat, you know, this is what you would be getting. And so obviously, if you bonded with her and she merged with you, you become tougher and cooler. It was a lot more on the individual, like the mage. So in my Arcanist books, it's a little bit more about like what kind of creature you bond to. But in our tabletop game, you could bond with you could bond with many, like all the time. Like we've had people that had like 14 creatures.
So closer to the
gosh.
Pokemon inspiration.
Yeah, much closer to the Pokemon inspiration. The soul mages had the ability to make their creatures grow faster, but the wild mages had abilities to bond with tons and tons of creatures. So if you were a soul wild mage, not only could you have a shit ton of creatures, but they would all grow and be faster, like better, just in general. And we had a lot of people play those types of builds where they might as well have been a Pokemon master because they were just in the background with like 30 creatures, and they're all gigantic. The Soul Magic had abilities to make a creature that would normally be, maybe you had a horse. I don't know why you would do this, but Soul Magic had like abilities, and Wild Magic too. Had a magical abilities where you can make them gargantuan, so you could have like a normal horse, but then you could have like a gargantuan horse. You know what I'm saying? And trample all your enemies and bullshit like that.
Or just run faster.
Yeah, but so I hesitate to bring all this up because that's clearly not what happens in my Arcanist books. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't really use our tabletop game to duplicate an Arcanist book and feel, because our game is a little bit too cuckoo cuckoo. I reined it all in to tell a coherent story. Because yeah, I got close to letting the crazy out in the Nexus games, because the Nexus games is more what you would see in our tabletop games. It was like, it's over the top, in terms of like, there's giant dragons, there are mages all over the place trying to kill you, there's magical creatures, maybe you're in a world that's like a horror show, you know what I'm saying? Like, but that was always fun for us. You guys have seen basically how the sausage is made. I understand that Chad is making his game wholesale, and I like the level up system in Vampire. We got rid of that in our game, but in Vampire, everybody had disciplines, and you can level up your discipline, and I think that's what you're kind of doing to make the evocation, manipulation, and augmentation, right?
A little bit closer, and give it more of a two people could have the same creature and go down different paths with it. These were the first, like, I wanted to get at least like 3 per row for what I thought they'd be in there, but I eventually will probably add more.
Nice.
But that way, everyone with a nightmare, they can do this. Like, no, if they don't care about, hurting their allies or not, they won't be able to prevent it. I did, even like 2 weeks ago, I was going to try to put passives in there, like the passive abilities. And I thought, I'll just give them their own little different section. One of the things I read, one of the books I read that sort of gave me an idea for modifying it, if you ever read the Dungeon Lord series, their random like bulk experience for buying stuff, that did guide me away.
Is it the series that's literally called Dungeon Lord, or is it a Dungeon Lord?
Dungeon Lord.
Okay.
With
I haven't read the Dungeon Lord book, but I have read some Dungeon Lord books.
He stopped writing it partway through. It's very sad.
Oh, okay.
Very good book. Very good. Stops at a very big cliffhanger.
And then he grew bored and left.
But so the idea was sort of in that same vein as like Vampires, where, oh, you complete this scene, you get this much experience, you do these extra things, you get that. Probably even have the gain in experience just for showing up for the session. Just to get people to want to actually show up, because that's so hard nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. It's always the curse of tabletop gaming. The more people you have, the less likely you're ever going to meet, because none of your schedules can ever align.
Feel that?
we struggle to get just our 2 schedules aligned.
Right. Shoot, one of us will be going on vacation and be like, okay, let's do 2 episodes this week, and then we won't record next week, but then the week following will be good, and then like this week we're like, okay, well, since I'm gonna be on vacation next week, like we'll record on Tuesday instead of Thursday, so we can do the live stream on Thursday. And
all this juggling, so many vacations you guys take.
That's all they're wanting to say, is that they can take vacations.
No, it's okay. I understand. I appreciate you guys taking the time and coming out on Thursday. Huh? So have you play tested this at all, Chad, or is this
beyond trying to do things in my own head? No, it's very hard to find people to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah. I gotcha. You don't have your own John? You don't have somebody who's married to the numbers?
Nope. I have 2 cats, and their response to everything I say is, "Leave me be, I'm sleeping," or "I just want to stare at you from across the room." Or
probably some scritches, some catnip demands.
Or, I'm going to break down this door. Hello, goodbye. I just didn't want you to have a door closed.
Yeah.
How dare you try to do something without me?
Which, if you've seen on the Discord, the small cat I have, the white one, she can break down some of my doors. It's actually kind of terrifying to have one just burst open.
She's a mature mimic.
But so small.
Yeah.
But she's so small. I think she weighs like
Oh.
7.5 pounds.
And also, just to give you like an idea of how much John really likes numbers, those ranks on our animals of pure magic. So like with Hazmat, they mean something like really tangible. And what I mean by that is that every time you go up in a rank from 1 to 10, you get 2 stat increases and 4 or 6 skill increases. I can't remember exactly because I don't have my rule books and stuff in front of me. But that from ranks 1 to 10, more stats, more skills, and it's numeric. You can count them basically. You can tell what rank of creature you have by counting up all the stats and skills. And like every other rank you go up, you get more abilities depending on the type of creature you have. And then from 11 to 20, it's half that. So you get 1 stat and half the skills, right? So again, you could count what rank creature you are because of the ranking. And John came up with like this entire system of how many points of growth you get per day, depending on how powerful a mage you are. So, you might need 10 points to go from rank 1 to 2. And if you're an E rank mage, you only give 1 point a day. But if you're an A rank mage, you give 100 points a day. You know what I'm saying? So technically, your creature ranks up from rank 1 to 2, like 2 seconds after bonding to you if you're an A rank mage. That kind of thing. Like John really, 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 I can't stress this enough, you guys. Really likes numbers.
Does he have a favorite number?
John's? Do you have a favorite number? Do you have a favorite number? 256, he says.
Oh.
No.
Oh.
Is there a reason, John Kuhn?
I know it divides into something. Is that a prime number?
It's 2 to the 2 to the 2.
Oh, okay. That's why. I remember there was something about that one. That number stuck out.
Yeah. So John says that that number, the 256, can be divided, multiplied, and fucked with in many ways, and that's why it's the best number. So there you go. You got his favoriteest number ever. But yeah, like I said, he went way, way, way out of his way for our system. It's just it's so much. It would overwhelm you guys if I showed you the like magics and stuff like that. It's not appropriate for a stream. We would be here for several hours.
Make a very long movie explaining it.
It's silly.
One thing I was going to include in this was almost directly just taken from it, the boons and flaws of vampires.
Yeah, boons and flaws are
they're
great. Yeah.
They're fun. You can do some weird stuff in there, like just to help your character. Inspiration for things like that would be like have a permanent wound. You could be like Ilya and not be able to see out of one eye for very specific reasons, but also gain like 2 or 3 points for buying stuff, and have some. I need to figure out the numbers for it, but have some kind of cap for how much you can actually get as a total. Maybe only be able to pick like a couple in each or something. But also stuff like if you pick a baseline of, like in Frith, most people have like a tier 3, but you're like, I just want like a tier 1. You'd get extra points for that too, to be able to spend on whatever boons.
Yeah, no, that's fun. Some of the merits and flaws that we have are things like you can be bonded to an extra creature just as a baseline. So every mage in our game, you can bond with 1 creature, but you could take a merit to bond with like 2, right, out the door. And then if you became a wild mage, this is how we got people that had like 15 creatures, because they would take all the merits in the beginning so that they could bond with tons of creatures, and then they'd take up wild magic, and then they could bond with more creatures, and then they'd make themselves magical items, like the trinkets and artifacts type of thing in the Arcanist, to bond with even more creatures. And and then they just walk around with a fucking zoo of fucking.
I mean, if you like animals, why would you not like an entire like army or zoo that just follow you around?
Yeah, well, also in our tabletop game, just like in the Nexus games, if you're bonded to a creature, they can always retreat into your shadow. Like that's a small pocket dimension for familiars, basically. Your Eldrin. And so what was really funny is the guy who had 14 dragons, and they were all like gigantic, and they could just come out of his shadow at any second. And we did have a lot of funny moments where we're like in a building, and then he would be like, I bring out my creature. And it was like, oh God, the building, it's gone, it's smashed. The whole town is fucking destroyed.
When
He busted out all of his gigantic creatures right here in the middle of nowhere.
when the room isn't big enough, summon dragons.
Yeah, it was it was funny.
So, John, or I'm sorry, Chad.
Four letter names, all the same.
Oh my lord. Now, do you have kind of like a starting sheet for your game yet?
Not a proper one. No, not really. I was working on this one, looking at all the things, and sort of didn't make the actual sheet as I had a vision for it. But generally, the only thing that actual characters would have would be like HP and list of items and the number of wounds they have, because I was going to use HP and wounds, and that way you could have the bigger numbers with healing and make it actually feel good. But wounds are like permanent damage that you can't really heal from. Most of the actual character sheet would be, I guess, contained in the creature one. Whenever you get your creature, you'd be handed your like 2 or 3 sheets of paper on that, if that makes sense. The Nightmare was the one I was focusing on when I had more ideas for it, because I wanted to get it ready for this in some amount of time. When I first mentioned it like 2-3 weeks ago.
So you haven't done the like Rizzle or anything like that?
No, sadly. I have a guy at work that I've gotten to start reading the series, and that is his favorite. So when I told him I was making a creature, he's like, "Oh, you made the..." Like, no, sadly, no.
Yeah, that one's one of my favorites too. There is a surprisingly lack of ferret myths, like magical ferrets in any sort of myth. And I really, really like ferrets, so that was one that I had to make myself.
I appreciate that Nicolin thinks that he's the main character as well.
I love how sassy his name just popped out of my head in Astro Academy.
Oh, Reevee, yeah.
Yes, I love how sassy Reevee is. Just like, I swear, like, you guys will do what I say. I am the teacher's, the teacher's Eldrin, the teacher's Rizzle. You will listen. I have authority.
Sorry.
I like Meatbag mainly because his name's Meatbag.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great too. See, all the Rizzles are perfect in their own perfect little way.
Such big personalities in a tiny little form of fluff.
I'm sure Nicolin would be very disappointed that none of us said that he was the best one.
I don't know if Nicolin's ego would be able to handle that blow.
He would just disintegrate us. You know, he hides the bodies of anyone who disappoints him.
Working on this, obviously, are you going to build out every single Eldrin that you want to have included in the game?
So eventually I am going to add, like how she had mentioned for hers, tags to creatures and have those as sort of like general rulings instead of spelling it out on each individual creature 50 times across all of them. But I will eventually add out, I'd like to build every creature. One of the reasons I'm waiting for the bestiary. Have more exact definitions for a lot of them. Based on the few you've shared, I can kind of guess at how to translate them into a game fairly well. And like even for like true forms, go for that one. It's sort of one I extrapolated, and I was probably going to stick with a Pokemon reference where you have to level them up 99 times to get their true form. They'd be like a level 100 at that point, but gain some like for golems, you have to feed them like 99 units of that metal or something over time, or for the virtue type ones, some system of just giving people a certain number of points for very specific actions, and when they reach the right number, they get their true form. Stuff like the aura were going to be basically expensive, like feats or skills you could buy with experience. Like, you know, if it costs 20 to buy a level up to your magic, it'd be like 50 or 60, and you could get things like your tiers of aura, which I actually have on him, like the forced, the calm, and the mastered. Get better at using it over time, but you basically have to invest a lot of points into it.
And then as far as like objects and magic, the imbuing, that kind of part of it, how, just thoughts on it, not necessarily like trying to put you on wholly on the spot of.
So that one would also be sort of like the aura. You have to get the skill, and intention is someone would be teaching you, and then you'd have a reason to spend points on it. But ultimately, you know, spend whatever specific amount of experience to learn the skill, and then you kind of like how with the magics, you have the list of things. You would get a skill that is, oh, you can invest, you know, you can work with different materials, you can have like a better guaranteed success for using more star shards, stuff like that.
Okay.
And then
So it's
like
kinda
weapons would work the same way. Like, oh, you learn how to use small swords. You can get like jumping attacks or parries and stuff like that.
So exciting. Like I said, I've never played a tabletop game before, but I really like this series. I'm not sure if you guys can tell or not.
Yeah, do you? You've never mentioned that before.
Nah, not at all. Not, you know,
Could've
definitely
never
not
guessed
mentioning it to
it,
the coworkers or, you know, trying to convince people into reading this, you know, my family, that kind of thing.
Hey, I appreciate you. I also really like the series, you know.
That's probably more important.
That is
I
a
would
that is
think
a
so.
benefit of it.
It has a ton of my favorite stuff in it, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, I'm a huge fan of things like Pokemon, Digimon, but I also really, really like just adventure fantasy. I really, really love the world, basically, like having really unique locations that all feel like fun and magical in and of themselves. I have a stupid history degree, so I have to use it somehow. I base a lot of the cities and the cultures off of really fun, interesting real world cultures. So, you guys, I'm sure you all remember the Chasm City, you know, where the first typhoon beast had died, right?
Yeah.
And there's like a big gorge. That is based off of a real world city where they built two halves of the city across like a giant chasm. And I always thought that was really, I mean, I thought it was stupid, to be frank, because feels like you're gonna die, but I always at least thought it was very cool to look at, and it would be very interesting to live in a city over a gigantic pit. But you know,
You would be a tourist, but not buy a house there.
yeah, I would look at it, you know, Instagram a couple pictures of me near the edge.
You'd probably like there's one YouTuber I watch, and his favorite phrase is "geography is everything." So he tries to turn everything into like a geography lesson.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm just saying, Frith Chronicles is definitely all of my things that I love just wrapped into a ball.
But
All right. So moving from, go ahead, Chad.
no, I'm go ahead. I am better at answering questions than I am spewing information out. So questions are better than rambling for me.
So moving forward with your tabletop, kind of like, where's your next step? I know you're talking about getting most things written down or at least typed out, so that way you have something to look back on, that kind of thing, right?
A lot of it is, I think, the more creatures I specifically build, the more specific mechanics that I can put on paper. A lot of things because I don't have anyone to bounce it off of, usually it's just in my head, bouncing around throughout my day. It makes it easy. My job's physical, so my brain needs to be occupied somewhere else anyway. But
Do you listen to audiobooks?
yes, right now I'm actually going through the Frith series to help with this. But I think in the past year I've gone through like 150 books.
Oh, woo!
Jeez.
Good.
You get 8-10 hours a day. Listen, if I heard the book before, I listened to it at like 1.5 speed.
Wow,
First time
that's
I
impressive.
go through it at normal speed, but it fills the day. Books don't last more than like 2 days half the time, but oh well.
Yep.
All right. And then is there anything else specifically towards your tabletop that you want to discuss or ask about as far as mechanics go? I know you said you're working towards more towards vampire, correct?
That was one of the inspirations I had for it. I had a few Numenera vampire, even Dungeon Lord added a little bit of it, and just I wanted to make the system simple-ish so people could pick it up easy. I know it's already geared towards people who like creatures and whatnot, so I wanted to be something that people could actually play with, not needing a 100-page rule book. It might turn into that eventually, especially when the creatures would make it hundreds and hundreds, but oh well. But I try to make it simple, so if things are complicated, I mean, my wording makes sense in my head, but translating to other people's difficult.
Well,
It happens.
we'll definitely have to keep in touch and bring you on periodically, just so that way we can see your progress and kind of see what you got put down and see where we can talk through things and help make sure it makes sense. And definitely something looking forward to. I know a lot of people on Discord, on the Capital Station Discord server, a lot of people talk about being interested in a tabletop with the Frith Chronicles, and I know this is definitely going to be something that a lot of people are going to be excited about and keep continuing to be looking after. So we'll definitely be excited to keep in touch with you and keep getting updates from you.
I'll give updates as I make like milestone improvements on it, and
Nice.
hopefully, and by showing it off, I can use random people as bouncing off ideas to make it more coherent and more fluid for people to understand.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to start wrapping things up here. We are extremely happy that we had everybody on today. Chad, thank you so much for coming on. Shami, I know kind of like last minute threw you out there on that, but thank you so much
That's okay.
for taking the time. I know you just got back from LibertyCon, right?
Oh, yeah. That was great, but it's tiring sometimes to go to cons because I'm an old woman now. Okay, well,
So,
see if anyone.
I really appreciate you guys.
I appreciate you
setting
showing
this
up. It was a good opportunity. It's been nice.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I didn't have to do anything. You guys just ran it all, and I was also here, so.
Success.
You weren't a moderator?
Yeah. And I also just got to participate. It was beautiful.
So, well, we thank everybody for coming on. We want to thank everybody for listening and watching the podcast, the YouTube channel. We really do appreciate any kind of feedback, whether it's just thumbs up or comments on there. We're almost to 1,000 downloads overall with the podcast, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I do appreciate everybody for listening to the podcast, whether it's the podcast or the YouTube channel. So again, really love and appreciate that. Next week, we'll be getting into book number 5, World Serpent. Yep. We'll be getting into World Serpent Arcanist and starting next week. So this will be our week between books. So again, we thank you for everybody, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Eric, Scott, and I want to thank everyone for listening today. We post a new episode every Wednesday morning at 11 Eastern, 10 Central, and 8 Pacific Standard Time. We are on all podcasting platforms and are also on YouTube as well for video. After the additional episode airs, we post chapter-by-chapter videos every day in a smaller, easier-to-digest format. We do want to give a special shout-out to the final member of our team, Dan Mackison. one of the admins for the Frith Chronicles Wiki, link listed below, and doing his best to keep everything running smoothly behind the scenes. If you want to reach out to us, you could email us at frithguildpod@gmail.com or on Facebook or any other social media by searching for Frith Guild Podcast. Just to remind everybody, we have links to everything in the description below on both the podcast and YouTube.